Make sure you check out our sponsor over at 714 Tickets. They take pride in providing their customers with transparent pricing and excellent service. With 714 Tickets, you don't have to worry about hidden fees or surprises at checkout. The price you see is the price you pay. Plus, their team is dedicated to ensuring that you have the best shopping experience possible. And as a special thank you, they're offering a 10% discount on your purchase as well as entering you in a drawing for a free Halos jersey. Also, 5% cash back on your purchase. Only when you use the promotional code HITI at checkout. That's HITI, HITI. Get ready to shop with confidence and discover great deals today over at 714 Tickets.
Fox here from Halos in the Infield, and we are going to have a Cross the Pond podcast. As we get started here, I'm going to lead this podcast off solo, but I'm also going to have a guest on the show, and it's the one, the only from the UK, Mr. Nick Wright. You want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be on with you, Todd. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. I came across your page. We've seen it a little bit, floating around. You're getting big over there on Instagram and a little bit here on Facebook. We're seeing UK fans, and your fandom in general has been talked about as far as how dedicated you are. I mean, how are you able to see the games on that kind of time difference that you're on?
You just have to sacrifice a lot of sleep. I get this a lot. I mean, when you're picking a baseball team in the UK, the sensible thing to do is to pick an East Coast team, because whilst the time difference is still there, the 5 hours, there's a lot more day games, a lot more hours to sleep. But for us, I mean, the 8-hour time difference to start with is already problematic. But then most of the Angels games start about 2:30 in the morning, home games 2:30 in the morning. So there's not much time either side really to sleep. But I make it work. I generally will try and catch most games live. I'm not the sort of person that can, not watch it live, go back, not see the score, wake up in the morning and try and watch it, because I'm just too impatient. And I think baseball is at its best when you watch it live. That's when you really, you enjoy the moment so much more, when there's so much more pressure on the line. When you're watching recordings and highlights, it's just not the same. You don't get those same feelings of adrenaline and excitement, and quite a lot of it disappointment as an Angels fans go. So I try to watch them live, and I use the approach of, if I can, I'll get a couple of hours sleep before. I usually set my alarm. I'm not a great sleeper anyway, if I'm honest, and I'm not great at going to bed early, so it doesn't help. But in an ideal world, I'd probably sleep a few hours before the game, wake up for the game, and then go back to sleep maybe for an hour or two afterwards. But it doesn't always work out like that way, and it depends how the games go.
And how do you get through the work morning? You know what I mean? Like, because that's pretty heavy, man.
Yeah, it can be a challenge at times, and it does depend on what I've got on the next day. I think sometimes I've got to be sensible, and if I've got a big meeting or something early on that I need to work on, then perhaps I'll only watch a bit of the game and not all of it. But on the whole, I think actually the best thing that happened possibly was the pandemic, in the sense that whilst it was, it's disastrous, and we all know the outcomes of it, and nobody would wish that. What it's done is change working culture, in the sense of working from home has become a lot more prevalent, which means that I work at home 3 days a week, and that extra hour or two in bed without the commute makes such a difference, because post game, I'm able just to get a couple of hours sleep. Whereas if I'm in the office every day, then I'm having to get up that bit earlier. So I think that's definitely helped. And you know what this year is really, really helpful, and that's the pitch clock. It is getting me so much more sleep. We had a 2-hour game the other day. Unfortunately, that was a day game already, so it didn't actually make any difference. But if we could have a 1-hour 57 game in the middle of the night, that is perfect for me.
Yeah, and it's bound to happen the more, if the pitching gets better from either side, or you just have two pitchers going at it, it's going to turn into something like that, to where you just have a really fast game. The pitching, and we'll get to the rule changes here in a minute. But I wanted to ask you, what kind of a Connect jersey are you wearing right there? Who's on the back of that jersey?
I got no one on the back, actually. This is
no one on the back.
Just the standard. Yeah, just the standard Connect, straight out. It was the only one they were doing in the UK when it was released, so I just jumped on it. But I'm coming over at the end of May, so I'm thinking about getting a custom one done.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you let me know when you're coming down, I'll hook one up for you because I do have a friend. I don't buy jerseys from anybody else. I have a friend that does it. He works actually for the company itself. So whenever I order, I always get a discount. So a huge discount, by the way. So I have all kinds of crazy custom jerseys. It's rare when I buy players. It has to be a player that I grew up watching or someone that was with the organization for a long time. I don't just buy like a jersey, like, just buy one. Like if we get a Johnny come lately type guy.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you a question. I want to ask first off, how did your fandom start with the Angels? Number one, and number two, how did you starting finding other Angel fans and incorporating your home page and podcast over there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, number one, how did I become an Angels fan? It all started on a family vacation back in 2002. And of all the years to go to the first Angels game, it's not a bad one.
Yeah, you struck it rich with that one, right?
Exactly. I thought it was all, rainbows and puppies and sunshine the whole time. But
this team's the greatest ever.
Exactly. It didn't end up being that way. But no, so 2002 came over and I think I was 10 years old. Even at that age, I loved sport. It was what I lived for. Saw it. I was in a hotel room, was watching Sunday Night Baseball, just flicking through the channels, popped on ESPN and just kind of like got captivated by this game that was on. I know the Cardinals were playing. I can't remember who they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cardinals were on and captivated, ended up staying up quite late to watch the rest of the game. And so from that point on, I was like, you know what, this sport's pretty interesting. What's this? Realized that there's a ballpark in Anaheim where we were for Disneyland. And I just convinced my parents if we could go along and catch a game. Went along, we sat out in left field, I think, in the sun all day. And I just sort of fell in love with the ballpark experience as a whole. Didn't hugely know what was going on, but was picking it up as I was watching more and more of it. And just, the sights and the sound, the smells, everything around a ballpark experience. I don't think there's much like it in any other sport. So kind of just fell in love then. And being an Angels game and the Angels won that day, I had to be an Angels fan from that point on. So thankfully, my parents took us out to Anaheim every other year when I was growing up. So we came back every 2 years and caught games as I was growing up again. And that was just how it kind of started. And then I think that was probably from like 2002 to about 2010. And around 2010 time was when I went to college. And as you can imagine, that's when I sort of fell into the habit of late nights, no sleep, watch the games in the middle of the night, don't really have to worry about getting up too early in the morning. So I think from that point on, I sort of like got deeply invested in it and wanted to watch every game I could.
That sounds about right. I mean, the 2002 to 2010, I mean, number one, the Disney aspect too, they had a hold on them till I think it was 2003. So you had the arty years in the beginning, but it was still, heavily ran and dictated to by Disney as far as what they had put in place. So the Angels can, for that period of time, you were coming back and forth. I mean, they were title contenders every year, a couple times nearly making the World Series. So, yeah, you definitely grew up in a golden age of Angels baseball. So from that point onward, did you start finding more friends via internet or just, if you went to a pub or something? Because I don't know if they show the, Major League Baseball over there at times. Get to that part of how you got set up with that, because you've grown quite the following.
Yeah, so that was something that actually probably took a lot longer to develop. And I would say the origins of that for me personally was in 2017. So in 2017, Major League Baseball started to have ideas around growing the game in London and growing the game in Europe. Mm-hmm. They brought an event over called Battlegrounds, which was a home run derby. Carlos Pena was hitting some England cricketers. And prior to that event, to publicize it and to market it, they did this Facebook Live event with a host here called Colin Murray, who tried to get 30 fans in there, so one fan from every team in the UK, along to this event. They supplied the beers and just did this recording on Facebook Live, went around chatting baseball. And it was a fantastic event. It kind of put it on the map. But as I was there, I started talking to fans of the other clubs, some of the Phillies, Astros, Blue Jays, guys that had already set up UK fan pages, were a bit ahead of the game and had just started the movement going. So at that point, they were like, look, the Angels haven't got a page yet. We don't know any Angels fans in the UK. I mean, they're there, but so far the online presence is small. So why don't you go ahead and set this up? Which is what I did. So 2017 is when I started the Twitter account, started the Facebook account. I became part of a group called MLB UK Community with my other hat on, which is where we set up live watch parties in London every month during the baseball season, try and get fans of every team together to watch the game and grow the game. So I created the account in 2017. It kind of just, it was slow progress. It was a way for me to connect, with Anaheim, California, Angels fans across America, which was firstly fantastic because it's just not something I'd had the opportunity to do previously. And it just gave me that connection to the team that had been lacking from so far away. And B, my mission was to try and find as many Angels fans in the UK as possible, because they do exist. I mean, we are dotted around and many people have similar stories to me. Many people come to Anaheim for other purposes and then find the Angels and then they're stuck with them like we are. So that's the way. And thankfully, we've managed to find a fair few Angels fans across the UK. I think if I was to estimate, we've found about between 100 and 150 so far. But there's definitely more out there, and it's just trying to find that reach, trying to use our platforms to get them. And maybe I'm being conservative with that estimate, but it's, I really enjoy connecting. I've met so many people through it, including one of the guys. So then I started the podcast in 2018, 19, I think. So halfway around the halo. And that's where we just give, a British take on Angels baseball, a different perspective, watching through the middle of the night. And I met a guy called Dave Evans through that, who's co-hosted with me all the way through the show, and just made some really good friends, to be honest, through the baseball community in the UK. So it's been wonderful to add to the sport I loved already, but loved kind of solo and as an individual, to be able to connect with like-minded people that are so close to me at home. It's been amazing.
Yeah, that's got to be one thing to take, pride in, is that you're helping grow in the game. Because in my opinion, the NFL there in Europe, it's taken time to get to the point to where it's at right now, where it's a big event. They're able to have it in several cities or countries in the European area. And, they're able to set up big events and stuff like that. I think baseball finally got that memo a couple of years ago. And, you're having more international preseason games or international, even beginning of the season games. I think they need to have more, to be honest, to grow the game, more regular season games. And, I like the fact that, the WBC this year, you had Great Britain for the first time participate. Yeah. And a lot of people over here were kind of like scoffing at that, like, oh, the Brits are getting involved in baseball. But baseball's always kind of been there, like you described. They've tried for years prior, and globally baseball is making that push, where they're reaching out to more and more countries. The World Baseball Classic was probably the best they've ever had this year, and it's reached out to so many more countries. I didn't know the Chechens had a team. They played pretty decent. A lot of these other teams you didn't even hear about that didn't qualify, but had decent teams. And it's right now, obviously America and Japan are the cream of the crop, but these other countries are going to catch up, just like in basketball, so as they grow it's only good for the sport, and it's only going to bring more fans out there. And I think they need to establish a goodwill game in the UK at some point, send a couple major league teams out there, or just do an all-star event, something like that. Because I think to see these talented people, that fans of yourself, because it's easy to watch soccer internationally, and soccer is ingrained into your blood over there. But if you're able to bring over stars, and these people can actually pay to see them live, they're going to become forever fans, just like how you became a forever fan by coming to Disneyland and then just checking out the Angels. Yeah, it's not the same as if they were to go over there across the pond, but this will encourage them maybe to go across the pond or stay up and get an MLB package and watch these games, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think when we had the Yankees and the Red Sox over there in 2019, it was an incredible experience. I think the city really took to it. There was excitement. You could sense it. There was events all over London, and it's fantastic. And I think the COVID and the pandemic really halted a lot of the momentum we'd built, which was a shame. We'd managed to build this huge momentum. Some of the watch parties we were putting on were getting record attendances and people coming in from across the country to celebrate baseball. So it was a real shame that got halted. But we got the Cubs and the Cardinals coming this year. They're coming over in 2 months' time. So that should be another fantastic spectacle. We'll see how well they're able to market that. The Yankees-Red Sox is easy. I mean, everybody knows the Yankees. Everyone knows the Red Sox. People may know the Cubs. The Cardinals here, no one knows the Cardinals other than baseball fans themselves. So it'll be interesting to see how MLB managed to market that. But it's great that they've committed to London. They've committed to games this year, next year, and the year after that. And in between those two, they've got a year in Paris. So it is great to see MLB trying to expand and baseball trying to grow. And you mentioned the WBC. I've just got to shout out Team GB again because I've never been so proud. I went into that tournament really not caring, really thinking, well, I'm going to watch this, but I'm not hugely invested. I just want Angels baseball to start. After about day 2 of that tournament, the games were incredible. The passion from teams, across the world, as you said, players just really representing their countries and wanting to win. And Team GB getting that win against Colombia was just, and qualifying for the next WBC is huge for funding, for future players to come through. Now you have a real opportunity to use it as a springboard and as a platform to have some homegrown talent, get these young kids into baseball and to actually push on. Because I'm sure you've seen the comments. The GB team was largely full of people that didn't have huge connections to GB. It was ancestors here and empire stuff there ultimately. But it's all about building momentum, getting the money involved, getting people inspired. And that's hopefully what I think Team GB did.
Yeah, I think they did. It's going to bring, like you said, a lot of passion for your home, for your land, for your, you want to represent your country. That's what it comes down to, country pride. And the way that they were celebrating, the fans all, each country had their different form of celebration. I mean, it was an event. It was sold out. I mean, they I think quadrupled the attendance that they did on previous WBCs. The ratings were through the roof. And you know what? One thing that a lot of MLB fans had complained about, the shift, the no time limit, the longer at bats and things like that. Nobody complained about it, strangely enough, when it came to the WBC, because the games were just fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the rule changes now to the MLB, I want to know, do you like the new rule changes, all of them? Is there still one or two that stick out for you that you don't like?
So we kind of touched on pitch clock earlier, and I absolutely love it. I understand the reasons why some people don't love it and what baseball is to them and the meandering nature and everything else and just the day out and don't want to put time constraints on it. But from a selfish point of view, I love the fact that the games are shorter for sleep. But also, I just think it adds to the excitement and the drama of the game, in my view. I think the pitch clock has been really successful in creating great drama throughout the leagues and just putting that pressure on pitchers and hitters to be prepared to play. So it's definitely a thumbs up for me on pitch clock. Bigger bases, I really don't have a huge opinion on. I think if they're good for player safety, then I think that's a good thing. I think player safety has to be at the forefront of all of our minds. We don't want to see these stars getting injured on the bases. Nobody wants to see that. So if it is helping and if the data shows that it's helping, then again, all for it. The shift is probably the one I am more on the fence about. I don't mind what it's doing. And I think actually the sort of compromise shift they've gone through is working okay from what I've seen so far. I do think that we don't want to stunt innovation in the game and the batters should have to adjust as they were having to adjust to the shift. I think it's a skill in itself to have to be able to adjust to these changes and, bunt the other way, get on base the other way. We've all been saying it for years. I mean, I understand the analytics and what they say about it, but ultimately you're going to get defenses unshifting if you keep putting the ball in play the other way. So I don't mind the shift changes, but I'd probably say that's the one I'm on the fence about the most because I wasn't sure it was desperately needed.
It's definitely brought the numbers back up for a lot of averages, a lot of bloop hits. We saw that against the Angels the other day. The Nationals bloop hit us to hell with that one, 14 hits. So it happens. The other one I do like, though, is the only limited throws over to first. And on our podcast, we've been talking about the Angels need to take advantage. When you get thrown, they throw 2 over to first base, you can literally take a 10-foot lead, and the pitcher just can look at you and shake his head. He can't throw over, and you could walk to second. I don't understand why the Angels haven't took more advantage of that, but that's a show. That's another topic for another day. But as far as the way the game's going right now, the faster pace, there's more scoring. How are your thoughts though about an existing rule from the last couple of years, and that's the ghost runner at second? Do you like that, or you're not a fan of that?
I started off not being a fan and
Okay.
thinking that it wasn't something that was particularly needed, but I quickly changed my mind on that. I think honestly, nobody wants endless extra innings.
True.
I just don't think they're necessary in a 162 game season. These guys play a lot of baseball as it is, probably too much baseball if we're being honest. So to have potential games where you can go another 9 and go 18 in going up to like 1 a.m. to it's just unnecessary. So whilst I don't think there's a perfect solution, I think the Ghost Runner has helped to shorten those extra innings and get them off their feet when they need to be taken off their feet. And also the fact it's not implemented in the playoffs, I think is the right thing to do. I wouldn't want to see a game of importance, won or lost that way. But I think during the regular season, I'm very happy to have it.
Okay, that sounds good. It's a good take. I'm only opposed to it because the Angels they never seem to take advantage of it. They always seem to blow it, but that's probably on them more than it is the rule. Next question I want to ask is, if you had to say right now, gun to your head, what's your favorite Angels player of all time, or do you have one, like one that you trump beyond, you put up on a pedestal?
It's Vlad.
Okay.
Vlad was the guy that, as I said, when I was a teenager and coming back to the Angels games, that was the guy. 2004, obviously, just incredible signing. And then it was Vlad. Definitely, I fell in love. It's really hard to answer this question and ignore Trout and Ohtani, though. I mean, they're global superstars. They're two of the best players to have ever played the game, and we're watching them at the same time. So I have to just at least mention them. But for me, Vlad was my first baseball love.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I was a fan of his when he was at the Expos, from afar, and I just remember where I was when I saw the breaking news on ESPN that he signed with the Angels. I'm like, no way, because the whole time they were talking, oh, he's going to go to the Yankees, and I'm like, damn it. But he signed with the Angels, and that guy, he always had a smile on his face, one of the nicest dudes. He signed an autograph baseball for my daughter. He came all the way over. He waved to my other daughter. Everything. He was just the nicest guy there in right field. Spectacular player. So I'm glad he's one of your favorites, or if not your favorite, because he's one of mine. That's for damn sure. Compare last year's team with the futility, not being able to hit. They had really good pitching. Compare the frustrations you went through as a fan, staying up and putting all that time in, watching the games, following the team, doing the podcast, to now this year I know they're 8-8 now. They've had their struggles here and there, but with the roster looking much better, are you more optimistic than you were last year for this team making the postseason and getting into a groove than years past?
Yes. I mean, the simple answer is definitely more optimistic about this year's team. I think we were all optimistic last year, though, and we know how it unfolded. But after the start, we saw some potential in that team, and they seemed like they had a lot of heart, a lot of hustle, early season wins. They were pulling it out of the bag, and they were still blowing games in the bullpen, though, even during those winning streak to start the year. But I think this year is a completely different animal as a team, and whilst we've struggled and we've seen the bullpen blow it and we've seen the hitting go cold at times, you look at this lineup, it is on a different level to what we had last year. The depth across the board. I mean, I think Hunter Renfroe, I said all along in the offseason, I thought it was fantastic. Exactly what we needed in the middle of the order there. Rendon's health is going to be absolutely critical to this team. If he's healthy, I mean, that just lengthens it so much. Urshela, been so impressed with what he's done. And to be honest, I was probably the one I was most skeptical about was Urshela and what he was going to do, but so far so good. Drury on the fence. We signed him off. We signed him off a career year, and we'll see. I'm not certain that's going to pan out, but at the same time, we do have the depth now. If Walsh comes back as well across the infield, where it shouldn't matter, we should pick our spots. And obviously, I think the bonus for us this year is how O'Hoppe started. getting that sort of production from the 9 spot in your lineup and your catcher is just, that's what winning baseball is. If you can have that sort of production from the lower part of your order, then you're laughing. And fingers crossed Neto takes to the majors like he's taken to professional baseball so far, because then you look at that lineup and it's deep across the board. The pitching, again, I really like our pitching. I don't love the fact we have so many lefties in the rotation, is my only downside. But Anderson started badly. There's no way he pitches like that for the rest of the season. I mean, he's going to come around. Reed's going to sort out a few things. He had a good start the other day, but I think as the season goes on, he's going to be fantastic. Suarez, again, he's not going to be as bad as he's shown so far. And he might be tonight, in fairness, because this Yankee lineup and the Yankee Stadium probably isn't going to suit him. But on the whole, I think he's going to come into it. And the best thing is, if it doesn't, I think he's got a short leash, because we've got those guys in the minors now that are ready to come up. Look at the way Silseth started the year. He's primed to come up. Sam Backman is lights out so far in AA. You've got, Mason Erler as well. There's guys that are prepared to come up. And I think the Angels have been shown to be aggressive with their promotion. So I don't think it's going to be too long before we see them. Obviously, I know I'm rambling here, but the one thing...
You got good points. Keep going.
The one thing we have to talk about is the bullpen, and that is the area I think we've all said going into the season, even those people that were optimistic it could be good, had to acknowledge the fact that it was an unknown. There's a lot of guys in there that either we don't know how their stuff's going to play up this year, coming across to the Angels, or we need bounce back from. Tepera, Loop, these are guys that Perry has trusted, Nevin is having to trust, and so far, Loop in particular, just not repaying that faith at all. So we need to see some movement. And again, I think there are arms you can probably bring up, but I think Perry's going to have to be on the phones all season and just shaking that up, because so far you cannot rely on it to get the outs.
Yeah, because a lot of fans say, well, let's just bring up Ben Joyce. But Ben Joyce is not perfected yet. And we interviewed him. He even admitted, like my fastball's getting there. And it's like, wait a minute, your fastball's getting there. 105 miles per hour, yeah, but he's not pinpointing it. If he's pinpointing and has terrific accuracy, his slider and changeup will be devastating. But he can't pinpoint that fastball, and he's been wild. So he'll get there. But like you said, Bachman's ready to come up. Silseth's ready to come up. Can Canning give you something that he hasn't given you in 2 years? The wild card for me is but they just put him on the 60-day disabled list, which is kind of frustrating, is Rodriguez. There's a lot of potential in Rodriguez, and unfortunately Rodriguez is not healthy enough to play right now. And, they're going to need to mix it up, and it could be like, hey, let's pull a guy off the Trash Pandas or Salt Lake that's ready, that's a reliever. That's fine, but he's going to take his lumps. He's not going to go out there and just kill everybody when he comes up. So, yeah, you're right. Perry's going to have to be on the phone. I think what's going to happen is they could probably add a guy, an Austin Warren back up here, but they're going to have to sign a free agent, or they're going to have to trade for one, get a pitcher in here, a veteran status to kind of, ease the situation, a leader in that bullpen.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think we're seeing this year come to fruition why you don't trade your closer. And I know he's been injured and hasn't actually pitched for the Braves, but if you put Iglesias in there now, the bullpen looks different, because then you're knocking down Estevez down to the 8th, which I think he's perfect in. If you have those two at the back end, then you're in a lot more favorable position. You're probably going to win more games. You're just lengthening the pen with quality arms. But I think you're spot on with Joyce. It's too early to be bringing up, and I don't want him to come up yet, because he is going to be a difference maker for the Angels at some point. But right now, he has to work on that command. And I saw he got the save the other day, and he was sitting at like 98 to 100 with his fastball, rather than pushing it over 100. I think that's great, though. I think if he can 98 to 100, if he can locate that still, as you said, brings in the off-speed stuff and makes him so dangerous. But I'm glad he's working on it, and I hope that the Angels do just let him do that.
And I also had a question for you. That's a good take on Joyce. But question is, who would you have close right now? Because I know it's more of a closer by committee right now. And I know it's going back and forth between Estevez and Quijada. But they also have Herget there. And I know Herget hasn't had the fastest start, but he did close during the August and September of last year and looked pretty good, even though he doesn't throw the hardest. He's not your traditional type closer. Do you think Herget still fits in that spot of maybe being a closer, or do you think it's down to Estevez and Quijada? And which one would you go to if you had to choose one?
So for me, no. I don't like to see that sort of picture in the ninth.
Okay.
I think you do need to use some velocity. I think for me, Estevez is still the guy until he proves otherwise. I think he was brought in to be the guy. I think he's got the stuff to be the guy. He's had command issues his whole career, and that's not going to change. But you saw the way he got out of it yesterday. He got himself into trouble, but then he got the huge strikeout and got the pop-up to end the game. So he's still my guy. Quijada is the interesting one, only because we know how bad he can be in low leverage situations.
Yeah.
Yet, when you do stick him in these higher leverage situations, just he finds an extra 3 miles per hour on the fastball and it plays up. So I actually really like him in the 8th and Estevez in the 9th as a combination, even if they are fairly similar in terms of velocity wise. But I currently would stick to what we've got going on and leave Herget to mop up mid-innings when you need him to come up.
Okay, so you're thinking like a loop to Para back and forth 7th, and then going with a 8th Quijada and the 9th Estevez.
Yeah, I think. Although you've got to throw Andrew Wantz in there at some point and say,
yeah, he's been legit.
Yeah, the way he started the year, I think he started earning some of those 7th and 8th slots when we need him to.
Yeah, that's true. Well, how do you right now? Do you think the Angels are on par with what you thought they were going to be, or they've kind of like had a few disappointments? Have they disappointed you so far? How do you see the rest of April playing out? So it's a two-parter. Do you think they're where they should be, and do you think they're going to be over 500 and finish out April pretty good?
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually to where they are right now, because on the face of it and looking at the record, I actually think you're quite disappointed. I think they should have a winning record by now. But when you take that on the flip side, the fact they should have a winning record right now actually gives me a lot of positives. So many of these games, right, we're 8-8, but we could easily be like 12-4. So many of these close games have gone the wrong way. You mentioned the bloops against the Nationals. The Blue Jays did it to us as well. I mean, how we didn't win that series, I don't know. Against a very good team as well. A very good Blue Jays team. And we honestly could have swept them. Quite easily could have swept them. So I'm looking at the positive. Whilst it is a bit disheartening that we've had so many errors, so many mental mistakes, so many crazy ways to lose games that only the Angels can do, I'm trying to remain positive because I think we've shown enough, particularly offensively, that this team is going to be able to score runs against anyone. And I think if you look for the rest of April, if we get out of this Yankees series and at least take one of them, I mean, I'm expecting to lose this series. They're a really good team and we don't have our best pitching going. If we had Ohtani, Sandoval and Detmers or Anderson going, I'd be a bit more confident. But with Suarez, Canning and Sandy, I mean, you're looking at potentially one win, I think, there. But you never know. You never know. But I think after that, we got the Royals, haven't we? We got the Athletics again. We got games and series we should be winning. So I think we're coming out of April a couple of games over 500.
Yeah, that'd be good, all things considered, because I knew there was going to be some guys that have traditional slow starts. Drury does, Renfroe does, even Urshela. And but we haven't had Walsh, Stassi, or a competent backup to Ohapi. And like you said, Ohapi's giving us a bonus. So some guys have started out slow. Trout and Ohtani haven't, gotten those clutch hits like we need, but they have been getting on base. So I believe at some point this team's going to be scoring 5 to 6 runs a game. Yeah. The problem I see that with this team, and I don't know if you agree, but they tend to put up a crooked number in an inning, and then they just go quiet for about 3 or 4 innings and let the other team just sort of catch up and do their thing.
Yeah, I've noticed it as well. It seems to be a common theme so far this season, doesn't it? Where we're starting fairly hot and then the bats go cold. And as you say, we don't have the pitching so far hasn't been good enough to maintain that lead, and they've just been chipping away. And then we see the problem is with that chipping away, it's all fine and good when you're winning the game, but it only takes a couple of mental lapses, a few bloops as we've seen, and the game gets away from us, and then we can't seem to bring it back. So yeah, I'm with you. It is a bit concerning that the offense seems to go quiet at times, but that is baseball. pitchers adjust, don't they?
Yeah.
And we just need to make sure that Trout, Atani, Rendon, that heart of the lineup is on it, because actually they've been a bit off, haven't they? I mean, on the road here, Ward as well. He had a great start and has gone quite quiet. So we just need to hope that the bats start livening up again.
We just need to keep pressuring the opposing pitchers, keep guys running around the bases. And I think with Zach Neto coming up here, you've seen what he can do in just in a short period of time. He could run first to third. Really, he's a really quick and really good infielder. It kind of sucks for a lot of Angel fans because it looks like this is the end of Fletcher's time here in Anaheim. But when you got these guys coming through the system, moves have got to be made. That's where you kind of put feelings aside. And like you have that jersey on the back where it's blank. Usually I like to do with my jersey is put my name on the back because I know I'm not going nowhere. So maybe that's where you have to go with your jersey, because sometimes, you could fall in love with a player. There's a lot of David Fletcher fans in the stands and other players that have come through, but business, needs to be thought of first. Winning needs to be thought of first. And if the player's not, performing, your time is up, so I wish the best for Fletcher and players like that, but it seems like, I think I have all the confidence in the world the hitting will go through and start winning us more ball games. But right now it's just really inconsistent. Starting pitching, like you said, has been fairly good outside Suarez. And, and as far as the bullpen's been a little shaky at times, but we all think that's going to get going because Matt Wise did a fabulous job with them last year. And I think it's going to continue this year moving forward. So, one more thing I want to ask: when are you coming out here to Anaheim again?
So I'll be there May 20th till May 29th, I think. So I'm there for 2 of the Twin series, all of the Red Sox series, and all of the Marlins series. So I think 8 games in 9 days, a big homestand there.
Oh wow! So you're going to all of them?
I think so. I'll probably go to all of them.
That's awesome. Well, when you do come down, we'll probably do something there. We'll have some promotion or something. You can hang out with us, or we'll hang out with you. Either way. From the Halos in the Infield, but I want you to pump your page and your podcast right now and let everyone know where they could find you.
Great. Yeah, no, I look forward to that. So if you don't follow us already, we're on Twitter, Instagram as LA Angels UK, all as one word. We have the podcast, the UK Angels podcast, halfway around the Halo, and you can find that on all your favorite podcast platforms.
Awesome. And we really appreciate your time. And, when you do come out here, or put some posts out there to remind us and everything so we can come out and hang out and have a beer. And by the way, what is your beer of choice?
That's a very good question. To be honest, I'll drink anything. I'm not too fussy with my beers. You won't find many that I don't like. I really enjoyed the selection up in Brewery X in the stadium, though. I was in there last time and had some pretty strong beers before the game on a Sunday morning one day. So
that's cool. It's cool. Well, they do have Carl Strauss, which is another good one across the street, and then the Tilted Kilt just down the street too. That's a good one too. So we'll definitely have to do some bar hopping when you come down.
Absolutely, yeah, can't wait.
All right, so this has been Halos in the Infield, another good episode here, and from our friend from the UK. We'll be checking in with you, Nick, later in the season, if that's cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
All right, everyone out there, have a safe evening or wherever you're at, and go Angels.